That Yomi is Bava Kamma Daf Samach Tes, Bava Kamma 69. And today's Daf Yomi is dedicated for Shemira for all of Am Chayolim, for the Shemira Hashem over. Today's Daf Yomi tells us on Samach Tes, Samach Aleph, and Bava Kamma the following statement. Gufa, we learned Amar Rebbe Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan taught Gazal. Let's say somebody stole an object. He the loan is Yashu Abalim, and the owners, the original owners of this object, have not given up hope. Then Shneim own lahatish. Neither the original owner or the thief is able to consecrate this item to the temple. The zelofino shalo. The thief cannot consecrate it because the object does not belong to him, because the thief stole it and the original owner has not given up hope of it. And the original owner cannot consecrate it because it's no longer in his possession. You can only consecrate something in your possession. So the Gemara challenges this idea of Rabbi Yochanan. I'm a Rabbi Yochanan. First, the Gemara says this. Rabbi Yochanan really say this. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, what didn't Rabbi Yochanan himself teach? Halacha Kistam Mishnah. The law is like an anonymous Mishnah, and we learned with respect to Meiser Sheni. The Mishnah Meiser Sheni tells us that Karam Ravai, the Karam Ravai is the grapes that grow in a vineyard. In the fourth year, one is required to eat them in Jerusalem, or you could redeem them and bring their money to Jerusalem. So the Karam Ravai, how you mitzayaninan oto bekazuzos adama. They used to mark the earth around their borders to tell everybody that this is Karam Ravai, and you're not allowed to eat it unless you first redeemed it. And they would make a sign, Simana ki adama, that this is the earth. And the Karam Ravai has the same law as the earth. Ma dama ika mine, just like the earth that eventually you can have a benefit from it. Rashi says after plowing it and sowing it and harvesting. Also here, af hai nami ki mefarka sharilasan yemine. So to the Karam Ravai, after one will redeem it, a person will be allowed to benefit from it. And they would say Vishal Arla, they would mark the Arla, the Arla is the food, the produce from the ground the first 3 years, Becharsis. They would mark that when it was growing as Arla, they would mark it with shards of pottery. And why would they do that? Simona kecharkis, to say that it is like shards of pottery. Ma charsis shein hanamina, just like shards of pottery, you could never get benefit from it. Afhai, so to this Arla, the first 3 years of the produce, you can't get benefit from it. Delays by hanamina, you can't get benefit. Mishal kivaros, and they would mark grapes besid, with lime. Why? Simana de chivor atzamos, that it's a sign of the what that under here there's bones and the bones are white, and so that's why they would put lime on it. And they would crush it up and pour it onto the graves, so that'll be very clear to everybody that there are graves under this spot. And Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, also Rabbi Shimon Gamliel taught and when are these words said? What are these words? That we make a heker to the people, that we make a recognition for the people walking by that they should know these things. When do we say that? B'shvius. When do we say this? On the sabbatical year, because during the sabbatical year, this produce is ownerless, and so therefore, people might come to eat it in a permitted state. But all the rest of the years, the other 6 years, we're not worried about people other than the owners who already know the status of the produce coming to eat it. How he tula Russia the yamos. You should leave it there for the wicked ones to eat it. Let them commit their sin. We don't care about it the rest of the year because anybody who's taking it is anyways taking it in sin. Not sinuin, but the people who cared, these are the modest people, and they were very discreet about observing Jewish law. They wanted to observe it properly. What they would do to prevent people from sinning is they would place the money and they would say, and they would say, whatever had been collected from this matter is consecrated. We see from here that even though it's something is not only possible to consecrate it, and so possession you can't consecrate it, because Rabbi Shimon Gamliel here is saying that these tzenuin would consecrate it even though it wasn't in their possession. And if you want to say, well, who is the author of this Tana who says that this is what the tzenuin would do? That's Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, and Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel because he's just an anonymous position. It can't be because I'm a Rabbi Yochanan. Kol makom sheshana Rabbi Shimon Gamliel b'mishnah seinu halacha kamosa. Wherever Rabbi Shimon Gamliel taught something in our Mishnah, the halacha is always like him. Except for these three cases of Erev Tzidin and Raya Achrona, and this is not one of those three cases. So the law should be like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel here. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, so how come Rabbi Yochanan said that you can consecrate it? Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says you can consecrate it even though it's not in your possession. So the Gemara says, "Ami lo teima kohan milkot." He said, don't say that it had already been collected, and Rabbi Yochanan allows you to still redeem the produce that has already been collected. Don't read it like that. Ela ema kohan mislakim. He said anybody who will come and collect it from this, meaning to say that he is consecrating it. Why? The Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the Rabbi Dosa, Amar Davrachad. Is Rabbi Yochanan really saying that in the future you can consecrate it, but looking backwards to the past you can't? Then we have a statement that Rabbi Yochanan Sinuin Dosa and Rabbi Dosa, when he learned this, whatever the Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa, I mean to say not like we tried to tie up Rabbi Yochanan and say he's talking about the future. Rabbi Dosa said even about the past, because we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yehuda says Shachris Balabayis Omenu in the morning. After whatever the poor people collect, said whatever they did collect is after. So we see that Rabbi Dosa is not talking about the future; he's talking about the past. And Rabbi Yochanan says the same thing about Rabbi Dosa. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is talking about the past, not the future. The Gemara says no. We're going to say Epoch. We're going to say reverse the positions. Epoch to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Dosa. Rabbi Yehuda is talking about you could do it in the past, and Rabbi Dosa is talking about you could do it only towards the future. So the Gemara says, Abel to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Dosa, Rabbi Dosa, Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara says, Amaya Falta Masnisa. Why are we flipping around this brisa when we could? Why are we flipping around this brisa? After Rabbi Yochanan, why don't we just flip around Rabbi Yochanan's position and say Tzenuin Rabbi Yehuda Amud Davracha? Then when Rabbi Yochanan says that Tzenuin is the same thing as Rabbi Yehuda, who says it's about the future and not about the past. So the Gemara says, no, lo sagi do masnisa. No, we have to reverse the brisa. Why? The Baha masnisa katani Islay Rabbi Yehuda Breyer, because if Rabbi Yehuda says you could stand in the morning and separate in the future on the basis of what the poor people will take, or what the people will take. If that's the case, that would be a problem. Why? Because the Bahamas is Katani Disla Rabbi Yehuda Breira, because that seems to be that Rabbi Yehuda is holding by the position of Breira, which is a position without Shas, which basically says that a future action can indicate a past. The action you take in the present can be determined by a future action taken in the present. And he says, whenever the poor people come, meaning to say whatever the poor people take today will be onerous, but we don't know in advance what they will take. And so therefore, Rabbi Yehuda says, if you want to say that Rabbi Yehuda is saying that you could do that, that goes against what Rabbi Yehuda says without Shas, that they can't do it. So meaning to say that the person was doing this was trying to prevent the poor people from taking the gleanings improperly, in which case it would be theft. So he's declaring it onerous. But we don't know what they're going to take. So Rabbi Yehuda doesn't allow you to do that. And so he doesn't hold by this concept of Breira. And so therefore we're going to reverse the position. because in general, say Brera, it's not. We have the following teaching. We're on the top of Samach Tes Amar Beis, because we learned if somebody takes wine from the kusim, Rashi reminds us that this is on Friday afternoon and you don't have time to separate it properly. And so he has nothing to drink on Shabbos, and so he doesn't have time to we'll get you on the outside offrish test from Shani. And then excuse me. And then we'll say it says though it's deconsecrated and mechal v'sho semiyad. To separate whatever I don't drink, and that is basically as you can't do that. I want to Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yossi. Why? Because they do not hold like Brera. So therefore, we have to say that Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says that if whatever you collected, you could say what you could you could redeem it, but not. Rabbi Yehuda says we do not. So he doesn't allow you to do it. But what Rabbi Yehuda does allow you to do it retroactively, and even though it's not in your possession, to say that whatever the poor people collected is ownerless. So the Gemara says, so for my come up in the end, why did you reverse the position of the Brisa? Mishum the Kasha the Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda was contradicting himself. Because in the Brisa, Rabbi Yehuda says we do say Brera, and in this Mishnah from the Mai, we say Rabbi Yehuda does not say Brera. But Hashanami Kasha, but still we now have a difficulty because the Rabbi Yochanan, we have a difficulty with the Rabbi Yochanan. The Amras of Rabbi Yochanan, because you said Rabbi Yochanan says Lo Tema Ko Anelkat, Ela Kema Ko Amaslaki. Rabbi Yochanan is saying that Beitza and Bechoros that it says Rav Asi, the Amar Rav Asi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Achan Shechoku. Let's say you have brothers who are dividing up an estate. They're going to be considered like they are partners. And so therefore the property goes back to each other in the Jubilee year. And so from the fact that they are considered partners, we say that they're not. We don't allow them to say, "Oh, what you took was clearly yours," and so therefore we see Rabbi Yochanan does not say Brera. So if that's the case, so therefore Olam Kohen Nilkot. So Rabbi Yochanan does not say Brera. Rabbi Yochanan says whatever was collected, that's what you could declare ownerless. And how can Rabbi Yochanan be paskening like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel? Because Rabbi Yochanan found the stomach, he found a different anonymous Mishnah who he rules like the Tanan. Because like we said in our Mishnah on Samach Beis and Beis, that one thief after another thief does not pay double. Amai. But why doesn't he pay double? I understand why he doesn't pay to the first thief, the Gonim and Beis Ishmael and Beis Ganov, because it says when you pay kaifo if you steal from the man, but not if you steal from a thief. But why doesn't he pay to the owners themselves? He should be paying the kaifo to the owners themselves. So it must be that the reason why he pays kefil, he doesn't pay kefil, is one because it's not in his possession, and the other one because it's not his. And so therefore, Rabbi Yochanan, that's the reason why Rabbi Yochanan says that we say that's why Rabbi Yochanan holds like the same position of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who says here that. Hold on, let me just read Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, but the rest of the years, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says that the poor people are allowed to say, so we found that this Mishnah from that's cited in Beitza and Bechoros, that he allows you to say like that. Because Rabbi Yochanan found this anonymous Mishnah that says, so, and what's the reason why he doesn't do it? Because we see that The one is because it's not his, and the other one is because it's not in his position. And so we see from here that Rabbi Yochanan is relying on this Mishnah that when he says that you cannot consecrate something that's not in your possession. The Gemara says, why is Rabbi Yochanan following this Mishnah from that we just cited that says that in a going of achar going to mishalim teshum kefal because it's not in his possession? Why are we following that price? That Mishnah? Why doesn't he follow the Mishnah from Snuin, which allows him to consecrate it, which allows him to declare it, even though it's not in his possession? So the Gemara says, because the reason why he doesn't want to do that is because there is a pasuk that supports him. And it says, a man who consecrates his household, it is holy to Hashem. He can only consecrate something that's still in his possession. Just like his house in his possession, so too only things that are in his possession. Amar Abaye, if it were not for the fact that Rabbi Yochanan would have said this idea of Tsinuin, if it were not for the idea that Rabbi Yochanan said this idea of Tsinuin, if so says Abaye, if it were not for the fact that Rabbi Yochanan says this idea of Tsinuin, that the Tsinuin could say that anything that was collected, we're going to say, that Rabbi Yochanan said that the Tznuin would put their money down and they say, whatever was collected, I'm deconsecrating onto this money. Were not for the fact that Rabbi Yochanan had said that, then I would say, if it were not for the fact that we did a statement that Rabbi Yochanan agree with Snuin, I would have said that Snuin is the position of Rabbi Dosa, but Rabbi Dosa laid it Tznuin. But Rabbi Dosa does not agree with the Tznuin. Why? Tznuin is the Rabbi Dosa. The Rabbi Dosa says that you could do this for the Tznuin because Ma beganev avdo rabbanan takanta. Just like if the case of the Tznuin is where thieves are coming to take it and they allowed you to leave it for the thieves. So the rabbis did a takana that allow you to say retroactively whatever the thieves took was hefker. But aniyim tzrichol meimer. So for sure you could do this even by poor people. But Rabbi Dosa. But when it comes to Rabbi Dosa, Leslie did Snuyin, but it's not necessarily the case that from Rabbi Dosa's statement we can see the position of the poor people. For the poor people, the Rabbanan made a takana. But for a thief, it's possible it's possible the Rabbanan didn't make a takana, and you could only do this principle to allow the thieves to be okay, but not to protect the poor people. And then Amar Rabbi Yochanan Snuyin. The Rabbi Dosa, he said, well, not for the fact that Rabbi Yochanan said that Nuin and the Rabbi Dosa said the same thing. Avamina Mantan Snuin. I might have said, who's the author that says you could do this with Snuin? That's Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir. Didn't Rabbi Meir say Meiser Mamon Gafo? That Meiser is the money of the temple. And nevertheless, with respect to redeeming it, Ukmi Rachmana Bershut, the Torah allows you to redeem your Meiser Sheni. So the Torah calls it Kari Rachmana Meiser. The Torah says it's is Meiser, Mosif Chomesh. And the Torah says you just have to add a fifth when you redeem it. And Karamar Vainami, Gamar Kodesh Kodesh Meiser. And also Karamar Vai, we compare it to Meiser. Ksiv Alpha Kodesh, Ksiv Gabi Meiser, V'koma Zer Arts, and Zer Arts, V'priya Yitzhak Hashem, who Kodesh. Ma Kodesh, Ksiv Gabi Meiser. Just like by Meiser, you can redeem it. Afagav de Mamon Gavoa, even though it's the money of the temple. And Bidia Ukme Rachmana Bershut. Say the Torah allows you to redeem it. Afai Kodesh, also by Karam Ravai. Del Siv Gabi Karam Ravai. Afagav de Mamon Dideyu. Even though it's not your money, but to redeem it, Ukme Rachmana Bershut say daha. The Torah allows you to view it as though it's in your possession. So we see from here, Ki Yisib Rishusa Nami Ha'alav Dideyu. So the Gemara says, so the Gemara says no, even though it's in his possession. So the Gemara is saying basically that we're comparing the Karam Ravai to Meiser, just like the Meiser, even though it's not in his possession, he doesn't own it. The Torah allows you to redeem it. So too by Karam Ravai, even though it's not in his possession, we allow you to redeem it. And so too, we say over here, Dahaki Yisib Nami Halafti Dehu, but even though it's not his, Matzi Machal Mishimachim. I skipped the line. Even though it's not in his money. Da kiste beshute. Nami how of the deyu, v'amatimech, v'hamatimecha, v'shemachi matimecha. So the Gemara, so basically, even though it's not his possession, Torah allows you to do it. Of about gave leket, but with respect to leket, even the mamon the day, since it's his money, kiste beshute, who the matim afterway. Since it's his money, when he would be allowed to make it ownerless, kilese beshute. But if it's not his money, well, matim afterway, wouldn't it be allowed to make it ownerless? Stop here for today's beautiful day.